Hi everyone, my name is Alvin. So welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today in this video I will be discussing about an interesting topic, which is actually not a concept or something, which is actually a designing architecture that we commonly used in software development while building some large scale applications. I hope some of you may have heard about this architecture, and which is very common or which is very familiar with every developers, and which is a very powerful and very flexible and scalable design architecture that are commonly used in the software development field. Uh, Before getting into this field, I have to tell you something that the architecture that we are taken while developing and software is not for good, or not for, it not provide any security or something, but it provides some more flexibility while developing. Okay, so that's why we use the architectures, or that's why we choose between these architecture while in the software development. So the architecture or the concept or the topic that I have chosen for this tech seminar is that the clean architecture by Robert C. Martin. So he is the one who introduced this clean architecture, and he is named as Angle Bob. And you can find out the official documentation from the Google. You can just search it out, the clean architecture by Robert C. Martin. It will cite you the first link that is the official documentation. The clean architecture. So let's dive into that clean architecture, or what does that mean, or how the folder structure and all came in that architecture. So the clean architecture is basically an architecture which is a layered architecture, we can say that. And I hope if you are in a software development field, maybe you have heard about the hexagonal architecture or in architecture. It's kind of similar to that hexagonal architecture, and there we have ports and adapters. Similar to that, here we have some concept we used in the development of the application using clean architecture. As we all know that the clean architecture is divided into layers, so it's called as layered architecture. It's one of the layered architecture. And the thing that is made the clean architecture different from other architecture is that its maintainability and scalability. Because if you are a beginner, and if you are first learning the clean architecture for the first time, you may have so many confusion and doubts in the folder structure of the clean architecture, because it's very confusing and it's very complicated. But the folder structure that the clean architecture, there is no folder structure that the clean architecture provides to us, because the folder structure of an application that we built using clean architecture is in the hand of the developer. So we can there have some rules and regulations that should follow while we developing the application through clean architecture. But we need to assure that these rules are surely following by this architecture that we are developing. So there we have some more rules, or some more principles, like solid principles. It's better if we use those principles while developing our applications. And the clean architecture is basically a layered architecture. There we have a core layer called entity, and outer layer is called the use case, and there we have interface and adapters, and the most outer layer is called the framework and drivers. So the entities are the we can say it like these are the core models or the entities in our application. Like if you are building a e-commerce or a user management system, then we can say that the user or the product is the entity, so which won't change. And how this architecture or the layered architecture comes into picture is that the layered architecture means that there is one layer is built upon the another layer. So each and every layer is depend upon the layer is down between that. So the innermost layer or the entity layer is the core layer. Okay, so the core model. Okay, so every layers are built upon this, and which means that we can say that the first layer is depend upon the zeroth layer, which means that there is no variable functions or classes anything defined in the first layer is not mentioned in the 0th layer, which means that the 0th layer is not dependent on the first layer, but the first layer is dependent on the 0th layer. Okay, so we can say like this that. So this is what we call a layered architecture. The most advantage of this layered architecture is that we can test each of this layer individually, and also it provides more scalability. As we all know that in monolithic architecture and anything, or if we are developing an application through MVC architecture, then we can say that all other modules are coupled together, which means that we can't change anything without the modifications of another module. So each and every layer are connected to each other, or we can say that each and every layers are coupled to each other. Okay, so we can't change or we can't modify anything in a straight manner. So in the case of clean architecture or a layered architecture, each and every layers are loosely coupled. Okay, so by making each and every layers are loosely coupled, we can modify any of the part of the application, or which means for example, if we are building our application using Postgres or any other SQL databases, and if we got some or if we get some urgency that we need to change the database from the Postgres to MongoDB, we can simply shift the core layer, or we can simply shift the database part only to the MongoDB, because the database or the repository layer is separated from the other layers, which means that the other layers only knows the abstraction or the function, which means that the other layer, or we can say that a service layer, the service layer calls the repository layer. Okay, so the service layer only knows the name of the name of the function that is inside the repository layer. So it only knows the name and the data that we want to pass to that function. So it only knows that, but he didn't, or the service layer didn't knows about the functionalities or the things that we are defined inside that layer. It only know the function name and the parameters that we want to pass to that. If we pass that parameters to that function, it will create the user or update the product or something. Okay, it will perform the database query that we defined inside that repository layer, but it only calls the name of that function from the service layer. So it only knows that is the name of the layer, name of the function, but don't knows the code or the definition of that function. Okay, which is actually called the dependency inversion principle. Actually, the whole principle is built upon the dependency inversion principle, which means that each and every layer should be independent of the concrete code. Each and every while we are developing the application in clean architecture, we each and every layers are dependent on the abstraction of a particular class or entity. Okay, which means that we don't pass any concrete code to another layer, or if we only pass the abstraction, or we define the interface for that particular class, and we only pass that interfaces, or we can call it as abstraction. We only pass the abstraction to the outer layer. So the outer layers are only dependent on the abstraction of the class, not on the concrete code. So these are the things that we follow while developing an application using clean architecture. So you can read it out more in the clean architecture official documentation by Robert C. Martin. So that's all I have to talk in this video. Thank you.